All right, let's jump right in. We're always taught to think of words and numbers as completely different languages, right? But what if it turns out they actually share a common ancestor? That's the powerful idea at the core of Rogerio Santana Lourenço's work on the alphanumeric image, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack. Think about it. Our whole intellectual world feels like it's split right down the middle. Over here, you've got the world of words. It's all about narrative, culture, even ambiguity. And over there, you have the world of numbers. So logical, so precise, the bedrock of science. We treat them like two totally separate ways of thinking. But are they really? You know, the term alphanumeric itself is kind of a paradox, isn't it? It hints at this shared bloodline that we usually just gloss over. Lourenço's whole argument, and what we're going to dig into, is that this divide is basically a cultural illusion. We're going to trace both letters and numbers all the way back to a single shared ancestor, the image. So to really get to the bottom of this, we have to put on our genealogist hats, but for symbols. We're going to use the framework of discursive anthropology to trace the lineage of both letters and numbers right back to where they came from. And this approach is absolutely key. It lets us see mathematics not as some universal floating truth, but as a real living cultural system. It's a discourse, a way of speaking and writing and making sense of things that people practice and negotiate. It's not just about calculation. So here's the first big piece of the argument. The letter is basically a specialization of the image. Just think about that long journey of abstraction. You start with a picture of, say, an ox, and over centuries, it becomes the symbol for the sound, aleph. And then eventually it becomes our letter A.
Okay, and here's the second premise, which is maybe even more radical. The number is an abstraction of the word. Yeah, before we ever had a symbol like 3, we had the spoken word 3. That abstract symbol is actually a step removed from its original home in language.
And this quote from Overman just illustrates the whole thing brilliantly. It shows the cultural choice that's happening. The Sumerians used these concise number signs for centuries because, well, they were just easier to manipulate for accounting and things. It was only much later that foreign scribes who were trying to learn the actual language bothered to write down the Sumerian words for those numbers. You see that split so clearly, the efficient symbol versus the phonetic spoken word. And this isn't just some one-off case. You see this dynamic all over the world. In Igbo culture, the words for numbers were directly tied to the physical active grouping cowrie shells. In Old Tagalog, scribes made a very deliberate choice to write out their number words phonetically, even though perfectly good Indic numerals were available. Why? Because the words better captured their counting logic. And of course, the ancient Greeks literally visualized their numbers as geometric shapes. They represented 4 as a square of dots, creating a direct image, a square number. The word, the symbol, and the image are always in this dynamic conversation. Okay, so if letters and numbers both split off from this common ancestor, the image, how do they eventually come back together? This is where Lourenço gives us this really powerful concept to explain how they re-synthesize into something totally new. He calls it the meta-image. Now, don't think of this as an image you see with your eyes on a rock or a page. No, this is an image you actually build inside your own mind using symbolic rules. It's an image of thought, a mental picture built from the pure language of math. So, how does this actually work? I mean, how can a system of pure symbols generate a whole visual world inside our heads? Well, Lourenço points to 2 perfect historical examples that show us exactly how. You see, this whole idea of numbers and images coming back together isn't just a theory. It was made real. It was instantiated in 2 key mathematical inventions that completely changed the course of science and engineering. Just look at these 2 systems. On the left, you have the Cartesian plane. It takes 2 separate numbers, an x and a y, and bam, it turns them into a single point on a grid. It's a language, a set of rules for creating a mental image of space. Then on the right, the Argand plane is even wilder. It takes a single, abstract, complex number and turns it into a vector, a point that has both a distance and a direction. In both cases, a purely symbolic system is generating a visual meta-image. These things are powerful engines for thinking visually. And this isn't just some dusty old history. This principle is alive and kicking today. Lourenço points to modern things, like the Brazilian Mathematical Olympiad for public schools, the OBMEP, where the whole point of the problems is for students to construct these complex mental images from a set of rules in order to figure out the solution. So let's bring this all together. If math is a cultural practice for generating mental images, what on earth does that mean for the classroom? I mean, how should we be teaching it? It really forces us to step back and ask a fundamental question about the entire purpose of math education. Are we just teaching kids how to calculate, or are we teaching them a completely new way to see?
The implications here are just profound. It means we have to stop teaching math as if it's just a set of universal, context-free procedures that you have to memorize. What we're actually doing is teaching a language. We are enculturating students into a very specific way of making meaning, a practice for building and manipulating these meta-images. And that means the goal shifts. It's not just about getting the right answer anymore. The real goal is achieving fluency, real fluency in this incredibly powerful image-generating discourse.
And this whole line of thinking leaves us with one last pretty provocative question. If the symbols we use to describe reality and the images we use to perceive it really do share the same DNA, then where exactly does our thought end and the world itself begin?